I think we wanted to get on this larger discussion about how U.S. housing is subsidized generally. And we could talk about quote unquote affordable housing. And we could also talk about traditional market housing being subsidized in ways that people don't realize. So, Sam, why don't you kick it off and tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind just hearing your framing is first to talk about geo-bribery as a concept and then get into this question of subsidies. David Harvey writes about it, as you said, and Anya Roy writes about it. I've written a bit about it as well. And it's the idea that localities in competition one another are bribing capital to invest in particular places. And this geo-bribery is like seen from the state's perspective. This is what the state is trying to do. I think in my interview with Dan Denver on the Dig podcast, he said it seems more like geo-extortion if you look at what capital is doing, which is to say demanding the most favorable conditions and playing one locality off of another. So you get this kind of dialectic of bribery from the perspective of the state, extortion from the perspective of capital, and just sort of like what the fuck from the rest of us who are looking at this, wondering when we're going to get these dollars. So that's kind of the context that all this is happening in. In terms of U.S. housing subsidies, I wanted to, in true nostalgia trap style, present two theses which exist in dialectical relation to one another that I think explains a lot of how this works in the U.S. And the first thesis is housing is extremely underfunded in the United States. We could put a period on that, or we could say in comparison to many other comparable countries and economies. The second thesis is that virtually all housing in the US is subsidized in one way or another. So we have, on the one hand, a remarkably small dollar amount that is given toward housing. And on the other hand, a universal program that we would only dream of on the left, right? We often talk about trying to make our programs more universal. In some senses, housing subsidies are already that. So to start on the first side, if you think about the history of public housing in the US, it's very clear that housing is underfunded. We, in the first place, didn't create enough of it, and in the second place, didn't fund it to the level that it needed just to remain safe and viable housing.